Okay, so talking about circling back, we're going to circle back to something that happened just before the end of the year, with Xero announcing one of its most consequential platform shifts that we've ever seen. So from the 2nd of March this year, 2026, the 15% App Store revenue share disappears and Xero will move to their usage-based pricing. So developers will have to pay how many Xero customers connect to their app and how much data they pull out of Xero. So we heard all of that before. We had a lot of people that reacted to it at the same time. But on top of that, there was the red line around no API data being used to train AI or machine learning models. I guess we can see the rationality. Xero has 4 million subscribers on its platform. 1 million of those come from the UK and is a $20 billion business. So having some reliability, ring fencing the data for AI, it's also a bit of an existential protection move. But for many of the small vendors, especially specialized tools, it feels like a rug pull. So though it's not changing anything for accountants, what we have seen is some experts have now waded in and the backlash converges on one theme, which is data ownership versus platform control. And we've had several voices that have come to us as well directly. We've had Nikolai from Genesis. We've spoken to or had back and forth with Alistair Barlow. And there's been a few other conversations that have come to the fore in terms of their argument of who owns the data and the fact that the accounting data exists because businesses transact and accountants apply their judgment and enrich that data so that it is enhanced for Xero. So software may process it as a custody, but it doesn't own it, and charging more while also restricting how the data can be reused, especially for AI, feels like a shift from an open platform to a walled garden. So ironically, some believe this could accelerate the very thing Xero wants to avoid, which is AI native tools building their own general ledgers to escape these constraints. And it's not impossible to think that it could be an industry that is set for, or not an industry, it could be a product that is set for a seismic shift. We saw it with Sage, and Alistair made mention of that. Alistair Barlow made mention of the fact that we saw it with Sage, where we thought Sage would always be the one and remain really strong in the accountant's corner. And then Xero came along and disrupted that. So is it likely that we might see some more disruption again? Possibly. There's an open question for the profession is not whether the Xero can do this, it clearly can. It's whether tightening the moat strengthens the ecosystem or slowly pushes that innovation elsewhere. And there's also another lens on this that makes Xero's move look less like a power grab and more like regulatory positioning. So the UK Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill pushes massive liability onto suppliers in the digital supply chain, which fines up to £17 million and has strict 24 to 72 hour incident reporting. So in a world where platforms like Xero are no longer just the software vendors, they are regulated risk concentrators. If you see it through that lens, charging for data egress and banning API data from AI training is about reducing uncontrolled data sprawl and proving alignment with the NCSC cyber assessment framework. Fewer app pulls means less data and means a smaller attack surface and a cleaner accountability when something goes wrong. So the trade-off for the accountant, which most of the experts talk about, is the potentially higher app costs and less experimentation for new innovation to come into the space. But also there's clear assurance that core platforms are tightening the governance before regulators force their hand to do. So I think we spoke about some of that last year. We probably didn't go into how Xero if you look at the size and scale of Xero, they have to take a move like this in order to make sure that when the regulator comes along, they're not slapped on the wrist. But I do think that it's going to be interesting to see that disruption that we've seen coming and being spoken about in terms of how some softwares and some accounting practices or bookkeepers may also innovate, use their own technology because they are not forbidden from from using the data on AI or pulling the data. So it's not actually excluding accountants or bookkeepers who have built technology and using that data in their own processes. Super interesting. Thoughts, Ryan?
There's a lot to digest there, isn't there? Yeah, I think most people have said the premise of the transition and the structure of it isn't necessarily the problem. I think the AI side and the training on AI is one aspect. I think the tiering and the impact on journals, or the journal API endpoint, which Xero have argued is to do with risk management, I think is a different argument. I think it causes problems for the small vendors. The journal API endpoint is the big bugbear out of everything. The AI one can be a bit frustrating, but I don't think anyone's up in arms about that. I think there's a few niche providers that might be impacted, but mostly I think the concept this comes down to is choice and control. The end business owner should have the ability to say whether they want or don't want their data being shared and with it being used in a certain way. And that was what was imposed on banks a while ago with open banking. And we've got no regulation around the tech side. So the software vendor can pick a path that they think works best for them. And I understand if there's some regulation or risk management they need to do. I don't think that's directly stated they need to go down this route. I think they could have done it in different ways. I think it helps them to do it, and it's an argument they can use to justify what they're doing. But yeah, I don't think there's a general problem out there that Xero changed the way they price. It's some of the details inside that I think have caused uproar.